Welcome to The Happy Writer, a show about creating and sustaining a long-term author career. My name is Patty Jansen, writer of science fiction and fantasy. I've published independently since 2011. This show covers motivation, diversification, learning new skills, and your place in your career. Come on in and be happy. In episode 41 of The Happy Writer, we'll talk about things you should focus on when you want to become a long-term writer with some measure of success. It is often hard for people who are just starting out, or even when they've been writing for a while, to figure out how they should be spending their time. You can do so many different things, but there is only so much time to do it. Of course, you can hire help for everything, but let's be honest, any help you hire has to offset the economical cost of doing so. Even if getting help might make sense, you might not be the type of person who enjoys managing a lot of other people. There is a never-ending list of things that can be done, but where should you focus? This, of course, is going to be from my personal perspective. There are things I believe to be universal across the board. Of course, each of these things has sliders, where you can either do a lot or a little of it. But if you do a little less of something, it means you may need to compensate by doing more of something else. And of course, this list is not absolute. It's good to occasionally stop running around and assess what you're doing for usefulness for the current position in your career, because priorities will change as you grow, and comparing yourself with a career type in your past or with other authors is not always productive. In the case of other authors, you rarely have the full picture of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they've developed their fan base. For example, it's no good comparing yourself to other authors who are selling really well and say they are doing it without any advertising, because you can't look into their dashboards to see that they are in fact lying, that they are advertising, but just not in the way that you were discussing advertising. They may have a personal history that brings them to the career path they're on, and not only is your career path going to be different, you almost certainly can't recreate their career path. You must do what works for you. If you find a thing that you like, and that works, do more of it, even if all the gurus in the world tell you not to. So here goes. With that in mind, here are the things that you should focus on, probably, in most of your career. You should focus on writing more. Well, duh, of course, but it's a fact that although the self-publishing model relies very heavily on backlist sales and relies on catalogue rather than on bestsellers, once you stop publishing altogether, your sales are likely to go down a lot, unless you spend an enormous amount of time and effort and money on advertising. There is nothing that sells your catalogue as well as a new book, so just make sure that you have some sort of production pipeline going. And while you're at it, make sure that this production pipeline is focused on series and clearly labelled genres. If you can keep writing in a very successful niche for a long time, then good on you. But if you're like me and write in a number of different genres, then new books will keep feeding new readers into your backlist. There are both advantages and disadvantages to being a single genre writer. If you're writing in a very tight genre, and that genre is doing very well, you can sell a lot of books. The flip side of this is, however, that you are at risk of suddenly having the legs fall out from under it, and if for some reason people stop buying books of that particular genre, that's probably less likely to happen if you write in a really big genre like epic fantasy than if you're writing in a really specific kinky type of steamy romance. Keep that in mind. By focusing your catalogue, you can make a lot of money, but you also increase the risk that what you write suddenly ends up in the doghouse when the audience moves somewhere else. But whatever you do, keep writing. You should also put some effort into learning some form of advertising. That doesn't mean that you have to go full on and become an ad guru in pay-per-click ads, but you do need to do something to keep your books visible at times when you don't have a new release. There are many different types of advertising: Facebook ads, Amazon ads, BookBub ads. You can do courses on these or just muddle through with the many books on the subject and testing and find something that works. There are also quite a number of ad list sites that will send your book to their readers. You can book these regularly. Or you can set up groups with other writers who cross-promote each other's books, run giveaways and things like that. The fact is, you're going to have to do something. Just make sure it's something that you don't mind doing, that fits with your personality, and that is not going to take up all of your time. Or if you find that you really enjoy the advertising gig and you're good at it, then of course go for it. Some writers enjoy it and are good at it and end up running ads for other writers. Nothing wrong with that. But be prepared to do some advertising and publicity stuff. Next, you should focus on learning. You should always be learning new things. If something new comes up, an app, a site, a new venue, a new format, whatever, you should at least have a look to see what it is, to see what people are doing with it, and to think about whether it might or might not fit in your business model. If new tools become available, or if you think you would like to try something new in relation to your books, that can only be a benefit. Often, early members of a site get lifelong benefits. I registered at MailerLite in August 2016. I am grandfathered into an insanely low rate. I registered for Publish Drive when they opened. My account is still free, even if the new accounts are now paid. I went to Google Play in 2012. I was still there and selling during their 3-year closure to new accounts and have established algorithms, while many people are still figuring out how the heck to sell anything there. If a venue allows you to register, do so. You may never need or use the account, but in case the site makes it big, early members always get benefits. I discovered the other day that I have a Tumblr account, apparently. Over the years I've been publishing, I've learned a number of new things, and many of those are very useful, even if only that I understand the requirements if I wanted to hire the work out to a person who needs to do this thing. At the moment, I make many of my own covers, which is something that I've learned to do since starting writing, although I have always done art. I have also learned to work with audio. This didn't just mean that I didn't have to pay to hire out expensive audio production to someone else, but because I know what these people need to do, I have a much better understanding of what to look for in a person when I want to hire out a job. I have learned to use dictation in my writing. At first it was hard, but I have found a way to incorporate dictation into my writing process. I normally go for a walk in the morning for about an hour and a half, and I take my phone and dictate a chapter. Of course, this is not a fully finished product, but a draft. I have learned to make this work for me, and now I use dictation as a regular part of my writing process. But these are all things that I have learned because I could see some point in using them. There is not much point in rejecting certain things out of hand. I never thought that I would have a YouTube channel either. But when I could see that you could put audio only on it, and that people use YouTube to listen to the audio, then I became a lot more interested. It's not that I don't want to release videos because it's kind of interesting, but it takes another chunk out of my time that at the moment I have a passing interest to, but I'm not really sure how it benefits my career to learn how to do it. Another thing you should absolutely focus on is very boring, but you should keep an eye on your finances and your sales numbers so that you can figure out which activity is the most profitable for you. You want to know which series earn you the most money, and it is highly likely that the figures are surprising. Low-level but constant sales over many years really add up, and it can be worth giving a series a makeover to keep it fresh, even while it doesn't seem that the monthly sales are that high. You've already written the books. If by giving them new covers you double sales, that's extra money for doing very little. You should also have a look at your expenses, especially make sure that your outgoing costs don't start to creep up, or if they do, that you know the extra cost is worth the expense. It's very easy to, once you start making some money, to just shovel the money out the door to hire more help. While getting a cleaner for your house can be a savior for your sanity and totally worth it, is this the case for every amount of money you spend on getting help? Does that help itself free up an equivalent amount of time that allows you to make that money back? Or is the activity that you hire people out to do even profitable? This is especially important if you hire out people to do things like social media posting. Are you actually making enough money from social media that justifies the cost? If you don't know, you should find out how to measure this. You should always spend less than you earn, except if you have a very specific short-term plan. But in order to do this, you need to know how much you earn first. Keep your finances in order, please. You should also put in effort into being part of a writer community. Most of the news you'll end up getting does not come from official channels. In fact, we don't really have a lot of trusted independent channels, and a lot of the emails that land in our inboxes are just trying to sell us stuff. As self-published authors, many services treat us like cash cows. They sell hope in the form of magic programs. While most are genuine, they may not be worth the money. There are also a couple of bad scamsters out there. We need contact with other writers to get the behind-the-scenes on whether certain things are actually worth the money or are worth doing, and which services or people to avoid. Your writing community with fellow authors is where you will find out about all this. Someone is likely to have tried the new service or have other information about it. Author communities are also places where you will find out how to get into new program betas, where to contact retailers, how to get problems resolved, where to submit for special promotions, and other things that can be quite beneficial. Every few months, author communities are in a flap about something that has changed, and people discuss what to do about the thing, or whether we even need to worry about it. And it's where you find your friends, where to go to cons to meet people, or sign up for online events. And then, last but not least, you should focus on ways to contact your readers. You should not leave the information about who bought your books and where purely in the hands of the retailers. You should also not outsource your social media presence to Facebook, Instagram, or whatever social media platform only. In short, you need a mailing list of some description. There are ways of doing this. Most people simply have an email list provider and send regular newsletters. But I also know people who have their own forums, who have registered contacts on their website, who have Discord servers or Reddits or other things like that. Don't rely on just one thing if you're using a secondary platform. It could be that the platform suddenly disables your account for whatever reason, that the platform decides that for some reason a group that you're running is outside their terms and conditions, and it will take you a while, anywhere from a few days to a few months, to get it resurrected. By that time, a lot of your readers will have gone. Even if you prefer to use a social media site to maintain contact with your readers, make sure you have their names and email addresses on your list anyway. In this case, you can just let them know that something is up with a platform where you normally meet and you can go somewhere else. But really just get the mailing list, even if you only use it twice a year to send people a notification for a new book. There will be people on that list who don't like Facebook and hate forums, whom you won't be able to reach in any other way. So there you go. These are a few things that I think you need to focus on, that are fairly universal and that will serve you throughout your career. In the next episode, I will talk about a couple more things that you probably don't need to worry so much about when you're just beginning, but you may need to worry about a bit later. Thank you for listening to the Happy Writer Show. Check out links and information about other episodes on my website at pattyjansen.com, where you can also find out about my books. You can support me by subscribing to the show or on Patreon at patreon.com/pattyjansen.